Hello there, my name is Michael Maynard and welcome back to Gorilla Picking. Now, today is a tutorial video. There will be no lock picking on this video, and the reason for that is that the lock that you can see in front of you there is the mighty Mul-T-Lock MT5 Plus disassembled. Now, this is a lock that I plan on being able to pick within the next few months. I cannot pick it yet. And one of the reasons for that it is because it is the most complex lock I have ever seen in my life. There are elements of all kinds of good stuff here. And so what we're going to do today is spend a few minutes going through this thing and showing you guys how it works and why it is so diabolical to pick. Now, I want to get a few other things out of the way first. Before we talk about picking this lock, I want to talk about its resistance to other forms of attack. And the very first thing that we need to get out of the way here is drill protection. So locks are designed so that they are a bit unfriendly to drills drilling in from the front. And this lock is no exception, but believe me when I tell you, Mul-T-Lock have gone to massive lengths. So what we've got here, we've got a vertical rod of steel going up the front. We have got this little half moon thing. Now this little half moon lives in there. So we've got two elements of drill protection in the Bible. Then in the cylinder, we have got drill protection galore. So there's this massive ball bearing you can see on the table here. That fits in this hole here. We have got two rods, one for either side of the keyway here. We've got a ball bearing here embedded and a ball bearing down the bottom embedded as well. So if you think you're going to drill into this lock, gentlemen, you have got another thing coming. Now the next thing that you can discount as well, you ain't going to be attacking this with torque anytime soon either. Now we don't talk about torque attacks a lot in the lock sport community, but a torque attack is when you stick something in the keyway, and generally you use an Allen key that's been sharpened. You ram that thing in there and you twist it and you shear through the pins. Now, if you have got a standard pin tumbler lock, say you've just got a bog standard 5-pin lock, those little pins are 2 point something mils in diameter and they're made of brass. They're pretty soft, and so you've got your 5 pins, you just shear them straight off. Right, well the business end of a Mul-T-Lock is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4mm diameter steel pins. So we ain't talking brass here, and we ain't talking tiny little bits of metal. We are talking about 5/4 are 20 mils worth of steel that you've got to shear in half if you think you are going to execute a torque attack on that lock. Let me tell you, gentlemen, you have got another thing coming. All right, now having talked about those two things, next thing I want to talk to you about is the tolerances of this lock, the manufacturing tolerances. They are unbelievable, and when I pulled this thing apart, I should take a step back, guys. This is the first time I have ever had a Mul-T-Lock MT5 Plus apart. So this was a double-ended Euro about half an hour ago. I sawed it in half. I took the clip off the back and then I crossed my fingers and hoped and disassembled it very carefully. And in the end, we actually did a pretty good job. But what I thought I'd do to get it apart was shim it, right? I mean, you shim locks when you take them apart. Now, if you look at that shim, you'll see that that's pretty munted and beaten up. That is because I just couldn't get that thing in there, right? Now, shims are 0.06 of a mil thick, maybe even slightly less, call that 0.04. This thing here is built to tolerances finer than that. So the diameter of this thing here is about 12.88 mils, depends on where you're measuring it, but it's very, very, very slightly off round, but by and large it averages out at about 12.88. The inside diameter of this averages out at 12.90. Again, you got some bits that are slightly more, some bits that are slightly less, but the bottom line is there is about 0.02 of a mil between this fit and this fit. So that Oh, and there's not a skerrick of lubrication on that either, guys. Not a goddamn thing. All those surfaces are lovely and smooth, almost but not quite an interference thick fit, and you can't get a 4 or 5 mil shim in down there. So, unbelievably good manufacturing tolerances, and that carries through to the pins as well. Everything is beautifully made. All right, next thing. What happened when I got inside and had a look? Well, as I am sure you gentlemen know, there are 3 separate locking elements in an MT5 Plus. There are the standard pin-in-pin units. That's these 5 things you see here, so that system of 5 pins. Then here, this odd looking thing here, this is a thing called the alpha pin, and we'll talk about that more in a minute as well. And then up the top here, you have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 extra pins which operate this sidebar. So you got pins, you got inner pins, you got the alpha pin, and you've got the sidebar mechanism as well. These guys at Mul-T-Lock, fellas, they don't want you getting into their lock. They really do not. Now, let's have a talk about the alpha pin. I love the alpha pin. It's a great wee design. What does it do? Well, if you have a look at these holes here, you'll see that the 5 holes where the pin and pins go, these are the pin and pin chambers, you can see down into the centre of the lock down here. Oh, and while I think about that, guys, check out the lack of warding on that thing. Pretty bad light here, okay, but virtually no warding in there. They are not relying on complicated keys to keep you out of here. They are relying on their lock being difficult to pick. Anyway, back to here. Now, this funny looking hoodad here, this is where the alpha pin goes. Now, you will see that that hole is blind. The main guts of that hole, there's nothing to it. There is just this tiny little hole here that's drilled right the way through into the body of the barrel. And that is because this funny looking pin has got a pin poking off the side of it, that little skinny thing, and that goes down into the lock like so. Alright, now why would you want to do that? Well, you'd want to do that so that an ordinary key cannot press this thing high enough. You have to have the alpha spring. What's the alpha spring? Well, the alpha spring is an active element on the key. Let me show you the key. So, here's our key. From the side, it looks dead flat. Very good. Okay, excellent. Now, the alpha spring is this little unit on the front end here. Now, it is not this little triangular bit here. Everybody thinks that's the alpha spring. It isn't. That does nothing. The business end, the bit that does the work, is that little thing there that you can see moving when I poke my finger on the bottom of the key. This little element here is a little loop of metal. So it's a kind of an oval shape. And when the key is not operational, it's just hanging there, not doing a whole lot, that little thing. When it's in the lock, the bottom of the keyway pokes this thing up. See it poking up a fraction of a millimetre above the top surface of the key there. I'll get a better picture of that later on because this thing doesn't want to focus on the key just at the moment. But you can see how, come on, focus, let's do this thing properly. Okay, there it is in the down position. Here it is pushed up above the level of the top of the key. So it pokes that little stump of a pin that's in there up into the little groove here, which finally takes it up to the shear line. Very, very simple and very, very cunning. So it means that if you stick a normal key in there without an active element, you ain't going to get anywhere. Okay, so that's the alpha pin. What else we got? Well, we have got the 5 pin in pin arrangements. Pretty complex little beasties these, but you've all seen them before, okay? So the key has got 5 concentric drillings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The outer pins are different lengths to the inner pins. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different things that have to be raised to a shear line. Let's just have a look at a pretty good example of that. This pin here, for example, that's the outer in chamber number 2. It's about that long. This is its inner, and you can see just by looking at it that that's a little bit longer. So those things are going to need to be set separately at different heights to clear the shear line. Alright, so what we're doing here, we're going through in order that you have to pick this thing. So the very first thing you need to do is pick the alpha pin. That is actually not too hard, that one. It's quite an easy pin to get. Then you got to pick all 10 of these. Now you will notice that in common with the standard MT5, the MT5 Plus has done us a bit of a favour here and is not using security pins for the drivers. I don't know why that is, guys. This would be a more difficult lock to pick if these were either serrated or spools, but they're not. They are standard. So we need to pick 5 standard outers and 5 very slightly lipped inners. If you guys have picked one of these, you'll know that the inners kind of lock into a little arrangement on the inside of the outer pin, and you just got to kind of ease it over that little lip. It just kind of eases over once you get it in the right place. So that's not too difficult, really. So if this was an MT5, you just picked it. But it's an MT5 Plus, and that means we have got to deal with the sidebar. Now, this is the bit where things get a bit tricky. To pick a sidebar, you have got 5 sliding elements that all need to get pushed to the right position. So they've all got to get pushed to 5 different depths, and that corresponds with the groove on here. So one of them's got to get pushed up, the other one's got to be down, the next 2 have got to be up, the next one's got to be down, the next one's got to be up a bit, you know. So you can see how that works. It's a kind of a wiggly arrangement. And I said that these weren't security pins. They're not, okay, but these little ones up here have got a serration arrangement. So just when you thought this was going to get easy and all you had to do was find 5 gates, I'll see if I can get that to focus for you. These are serrated, so the main gate, the one that you want to get to, is there in the middle on this one, but there are 3 or 4 little serrations above and below it, and so you've got to get all those to the right place before you can then retract your sidebar, and at that point, hallelujah, the lock has just opened. Now let's just show you that sidebar. Here it is. Now luckily it is symmetrical, so it doesn't care whether it goes in this way, that way. When the pins, with the sidebar pins, are not aligned, that sidebar pokes out just a little bit like that, okay? And what that does is fouls this groove, so you can see that the sidebar is kind of in its little groove trying to turn, not able to. When you get everything in the right place, the sidebar then retracts back into the body of the barrel. It's no longer fouling that groove, and the lock can open and turn. So there you have it, gents. I absolutely love the MT5 Plus. I love all Mul-T-Lock products. I think Mul-T-Lock is far and away the best lock manufacturer, pin tumbler lock manufacturer on the planet today. They have made a beautiful piece of apparatus here, incredibly fine tolerances, incredibly complex. When you count all the moving parts, there are 41 moving parts that have to go together to get this lock open. Now that compares with an ordinary 6-pin tumbler lock. It's just got 18 parts, right? So each chamber has got a driver, a key pin and a spring. 3 times 6 is 18. This thing here has got all this stuff in front of you here, and don't forget these drivers here are actually a sealed unit of 3 different parts. So that's not one part, right? That counts as 3, because there you've got the outer driver, the inner driver, and a spring in there as well, and that's all crimped together. So just in this row here, you've got 5 3s are 15 parts, and then you add all the other stuff up and you come to 41. So there you have it, gents. Now, as you know, I am on a mission to learn how to pick this thing. There aren't many guys that can do it. I plan on being one of them. Don't know how long it's going to take me, but what I do know is that I can pick the MT5 now. So I can pick this lock without the sidebar. I can get the alpha and these other 5-pin and pin chambers, I think, reasonably easily. And my next video that I do will be picking this lock minus its sidebar. Then what I've got to do is learn how to pick the sidebar itself. And what I think I'm going to do there, boys, I am going to pick this a few times without the sidebar. I'm then going to disassemble it again and reassemble it just with that sidebar in it. I'm not going to have any of the rest of the locking mechanisms in there at all, and I am going to get to work and learn how this sidebar operates. So that's the plan, guys. There is your tutorial on the MT5 Plus. I love it. It is my favourite lock in the whole wide world. I'd love to hear your comments on it too, gentlemen. Leave your comments below. I'm Michael Maynard, and this is Gorilla Picking.